Okay, the following sentences all have one type of pronoun problem or another. So I just want to talk through them with you so you can understand where the problem is, where the problems occur. So first of all, Adam told Chad that he was late for work. Now, some of you might immediately think that the he refers to Adam, and others might immediately think that the he refers to Chad. And when I'm in a large group setting, I often find that various people make the opposite assumption. And that just goes to explain why it's important to make sure it's clear who the he refers to. For instance, if you're Adam, did Adam say, Chad, you're late for work again? Or did Adam say, oh my gosh, Chad, I can't believe I'm late for work again? So in order to fix this sentence, you would have to make that clear. In this case, the he does not have a clear antecedent. The antecedent is the word that it's referring back to, the original noun that it's replacing. Okay, so number 2, the fast-paced hockey game between the Oilers and the Leafs made them realize they needed to practice more. Who is the they? Is the they the Oilers? Is the they the Leafs? Or is the they a little league team that's watching from the stands who's thinking, hey, if someday I'm going to be a professional hockey player, I'm going to need to practice a whole lot more. It's the they that isn't clear. The team did not play well in their last game. Here we have a pronoun agreement error. Team is a singular unit, right? And there is a plural pronoun replacement. So it should be the team did not play well in its last game. Or it could be even the team members did not play well in their last game, because the members would be plural. All right, that sign means you can park here if you're handicapped. In this case, we're using you inappropriately because the sign doesn't really mean that you and only you can park here if you're handicapped, which is a little odd, whether or not you're handicapped. It means that this parking is available for people with handicap stickers only, or something like that, or permits. The student was late for the exam, so they ran down the hall in panic. In this case, it's one student, so it should either be he or she. Now, sometimes people worry about this, and I know in today's world where everybody's keenly aware of political correctness and not wanting to offend anybody by making the assumption simply using he all the time, it can be a little awkward. But if you were witnessing this situation, you would obviously know whether or not the person you were referring to was a male or a female. So if you're watching it happen and you said the student was late for the exams, you can simply say, so she ran down the hall in a panic if that's appropriate, or he ran down the hall in a panic if that's appropriate. On the other hand, if you're describing sort of a situation where it could be anyone, then like if you were writing a manual and you said the user should hold the object in his left hand, then you're making an assumption that only a male would be using the object. And in that case, choosing between the two might be problematic, in which case it would be better to just go ahead and make it plural. The user should hold the object in their hand, or something like that. If you feel like you really can't do that, sometimes it would be appropriate in a particular scenario to use she throughout the scenario, and then if you were going to use another scenario, to change it and to use he throughout the scenario. But you don't want to switch back and forth in the same one, where that could get very confusing for the reader. All right, they only allow you to have 1 hour of tutoring appointments per day. Who is the they referring to? Again, it's not clear. Is it the tutoring center? Is it a particular department? It needs to be clarified. For Todd's hockey game, he wore the red team jersey. So if it were Todd, you wouldn't really need to say that. You could revise the sentence and make it more concise. You could say, for Todd wore his red team jersey to the hockey game. Otherwise, if somebody else was wearing it, like as a show of support, you would want to say, for Todd's hockey game, his father wore the red team jersey. Okay, on Tuesday, the company will release their new mission statement. Company, like team in the earlier sentence, is singular, and so it should be its new mission statement. As Betty and Veronica ran down the hall, she realized she had forgotten her purse. Obviously, there are multiple she's here that she could be referring to, right? And there's multiple pronouns used as well. So who did the realizing? Was it Betty or Veronica? Who had forgotten? Was it Betty and Veronica? And whose purse was it? Was it Betty or Veronica, or was it someone else altogether? So all of those instances, it needs to be clarified. As Betty and Veronica ran down the hall, Betty realized that Veronica had forgotten her purse. That would be more clear. They say that this will be a mild winter. Who says it? Is it meteorologist? Is it the weather forecaster? Is it maybe the farmer's almanac? Or is it those little fuzzy caterpillars that when they get a certain kind of coat, it indicates that we're going to have a mild winter versus a bad winter, right? So the they is unclear. There's no antecedent for it. Every student must empty his locker by the end of exams. Again, here you're saying his locker, and it is singular because it's every student, this student, that student, but you're saying his locker, and not every student is probably a female. So in this case, it would probably be better to say all students must empty their lockers by the end of exams. During Elton John's concert, he wore giant sunglasses and tall platform shoes. We can assume maybe it was Elton John, in which case you could just say Elton John wore giant sunglasses and tall platform shoes at his concert or during his concert. If somebody else did it, you would need to name that person. They only allow students to use dictionaries in English exams. Again, the they is not clear. Any member can bring their friend to the chess club. We're referring to one member, so it should be his or her friend to the chess club. But if you don't want to use that cumbersome construction of his or her, you could say any or members can bring friends to the chess club, something like that. Now this one, Bob told Doug that he needed a donut. I think it's really bad that I always think of two police officers sitting in their patrol car when I read this. But is it Bob? Did Bob say, Doug, you look like you could really use a donut about now? Or did Bob say, man, Doug, I could really go for a donut about now? It's not clear from the sentence, so it does need to be indicated. 16. The argument between Mike and Rich made him question their friendship. Did it make Mike question the friendship? Did it make Rich question the friendship? When there's two nouns it could be referring to, you need to make sure that it's clear. So you could say the argument between Mike and Rich made Mike question their friendship, or made Rich question their friendship, or it could have been someone else altogether, like maybe it's two little kids and maybe it made one of their fathers question the friendship. The user will find that once you have a little practice, riding a bicycle becomes much easier. In this case, it says the user will find that once you, and again, it's an inappropriate use of second person. When you use second person, you're speaking directly to the reader or the listener. And so you have to make sure that you is really appropriate, that you mean to speak to them directly. Will the user find that once I have a little practice, riding a bicycle becomes easier? And who does it become easier for? Right? So maybe the users will find that once they have a little practice, riding a bicycle becomes much easier. Number 18, every pilot needs to have their vision checked. In this one, when you say every, you're saying this pilot, that pilot, you're talking about each one of them individually. So, and that's why pilot, of course, is singular in this case. So you probably want to go ahead and say all pilots need to have their vision checked. 19, Bob told me that they only use this room on Thursdays. Again, there's no clear antecedent for they. And then finally, in Tina's chocolate mint cookie recipe, she uses fresh mint leaves instead of mint flavoring. In this one, you could say Tina's mint or chocolate mint cookie recipe calls for fresh mint leaves instead of mint flavoring. Nobody really is in the recipe using it, right? So that would be more appropriate. So hopefully by going over that, I've helped you guys to better understand it. And since I am on the very last one, I'm going to pretend that my phone is not ringing in the background.